How do you feel about the political events in the Spanish coalition government, which is divided over whether or not to the Ukraine's military weapons, and now may lead to early parliamentary elections?
Well, first, I think that this is in a general perspective, or world perspective. In general, in Europe, in all of Europe, in the United States, in South America, I don't know if in Taiwan it's that way or not, but generally in these countries, in Western countries, I mean Americas, including Latin America and Europe, leftist parties, or especially far left parties, as is the junior party of the coalition government in Spain, but it's the junior party only, were very comfortable with the crisis, international crisis and wars, blaming NATO, blaming the United States, and blaming the West. That was their mantra. Now, with this one, it's very, very difficult to have this position, because it's clear who is the aggressor, it's clear who are the politics of the aggressor. So it doesn't fit in this frame of NATO, United States, imperialists are bad, all the peoples that are against that are good. It doesn't fit on that narrative. So they have been difficult. They have had a little bit of difficulty to adapt, but they have done it here. I mean, in Catalonia, for instance, the far left party that supports the government, he's not a member of the government, but supports the government with its votes at the parliament, didn't applaud the Council of Ukraine when went to the parliament last week, and had a card saying no to war, stop the war, but as if war was, it doesn't come from thin air. But they went there and they voted for that. That's the same thing in Spain. In Spain, Podemos, the junior party of the government, inside the party there was divisions about that, but they have rallied under the same positions. They vote for that, and the parliament for the sanctions, for sending military aid, not only defensive but offensive weapons and arms to Ukraine, and they vote about it, and the government is united. So it was just a problem of adapting your frame to reality, and that has been, or is being, a problem for the far left all the world. I don't know if in Taiwan you have this phenomenon of leftists, of extreme leftists, that are uncomfortable, blaming Russia or blaming Putin just because they are mainly against the United States.
Mm-hmm. As a pro-independence politician in Catalonia, what do you think about the independence of Donetsk and Luhansk? Are they the same as Catalan independence?
Well, not at all. That's a joke. I mean, that's just Donetsk and Luhansk are no countries, are part of Ukraine. They speak the same language, have the same religion, the same history, and everything. It's just provinces that were told by Putin as an excuse, as an alibi to invade and occupy this part of Ukraine in 8 years ago, in 2014. And the same thing for Crimea and occupied Crimea and this kind of thing. So it's just a window dressing for an invasion of a country by another country. That's all. In the case of Catalonia, it's the same case that you can say the independence of Poland or Ukraine, or if it happens, of Scotland, of Quebec. I mean, there are real countries with their own history, with their own traditions, their own people and language, and they are part of a wider country, and they are not independent nowadays, more of them, or had not been independent. That was the case of Ukraine or Poland or Belarus or Hungary, for instance, or a lot of all Central European countries were not independent 100 centuries ago. But Lugansk and Donetsk are not part of that list. It's just provinces that has been taken as an excuse by a foreign dictator to invade.
Mm-hmm. Has the Spanish government imposed any sanctions on Russia for the Russian invasion of Ukraine this time, other than providing Ukraine with weapons?
Yeah, all the sanctions. the sanctions are not decided at the national level in the European Union, because one of the surprises that Putin surely has had, and a lot of people in the world and in Europe have had, is that the European Union has been united and willing to act, not in committees and all this bureaucracy losing time. So all the countries decided that it was a decision to be taken by the European Union as such, where all of them are represented, are the Council of Presidents of the Prime Ministers, and all the sanctions are established by all the countries at the same time. So Spain is doing just the same that France and Germany, Italy, or Poland, same thing. The only country that is a little bit difficult, for instance, is a little bit different, is Hungary, because you know that it had a lot of ideological affinities with Putin and his regime, so they don't accept the pass of offensive weapons through Hungary nowadays. That's the only difference inside the European Union. So it makes no sense to ask about Spain or Italy or Poland or Germany, because they are all the same, or Sweden or Finland. Okay. That's the reason that Sweden and Finland, that are not members of NATO, have called and have gotten a formal declaration that under European Union treaties, there is an obligation of defense. So if they are attacked by anybody, in this case it's Russia, because you know that it's beginning to threaten also Finland and Sweden, they will be defended and they will be considered as an attack to all the countries of the European Union, as NATO.
The Ukrainian President Zelensky has repeatedly criticized the Western countries, including NATO and the European Union, for not fulfilling their promises to protect Ukraine. How do you think Western countries are only willing to impose economic sanctions but not sending troops to fight against the dictatorships, invasion of the sovereign states?
Well, because in this case, the dictatorship is not like Iraq when invaded and occupied Kuwait in the first Gulf War, because it was same case, a country that invaded and occupied another country. It's a nuclear power. It has nuclear weapons that can destroy all life on Earth several times. And the politics and the policy from the European countries, from the Western countries and the United States and NATO, from the very beginning, after the Second World War, was containment and deterrence, but not to go directly to war to a nuclear potence, but containment and deterrence. So what does it mean? Do you remember the Cold War? It's the same scenario now, is that you have some parts of the world that are red line. If you invade, we are going to attack with everything. That is NATO. That was the Warsaw Pact. The countries that were under the umbrella of the Soviet Union. That's the reason that when Germans, when Poles, when Hungary in 1956, Czechoslovakia in 1968, revolted against their governments, the puppet governments of the Soviet Union, they were crushed, and there was not intervention, a military intervention, because that was the part that was agreed that was a red line. That's the same thing for NATO and European Union. But so outside of that is fair game. It's playing which are the limits that one or the other country, mainly Russia and the United States, are willing to authorize or not. That was the case of Nicaragua, of Cuba, of Afghanistan, of Angola, of Somalia, of this Ethiopia, different mainly African countries that they are not inside the protected area of any of the big nuclear powers, United States and Russia. So they are out of this kind of protection, because the main thing from the United States and from the Soviet Union and Russia since the end of World War II was not to go to a nuclear war between the two countries, on the two armies. So not to go more than inside these areas. Outside these areas, if you respect not to go to a direct war in this kind of case, well, it's what we are seeing in this moment, or we have seen in another international crisis or wars in the last 70 years, because it's the same. The tragedy is that we thought that we were beyond this this world, and we are not. We are again at the world when countries can think that they can invade and occupy another country with impunity. It was shown to Iraq, to Saddam Hussein, that it was not impunity for that. And it is showing now for Russia and Putin also, but short of nuclear war. That's the limit.
Let's talk about the situation in Taiwan. One of the reasons that NATO is not willing to send troops to support Ukraine is that Ukraine is not a member of NATO. Currently, Taiwan is not a member of any international organization, nor has it been approved to join any military alliance of Western democracies. Do you think Taiwan should be worried about Western democracies not sending troops to support Taiwan if China invades Taiwan in the future?
Yeah, plainly speaking, yes. I mean, but that's not a novelty. That's what has happened since 1947. So it's not a novelty for Taiwan, as you know, and you should be worried about that, and you are worried about that all these decades since Taiwan became a de facto independent country. But Taiwan can be, or Taiwanese people can rejoice nowadays in one point, is that the response of the other countries, of European, United States, and Canada, and Australia, and Japan, and etc., has been overwhelming. The sanctions are a level that has never been seen before. Russian economy is crumbling in this moment. The ruble is their currency. Is the debt is going to default. Companies are going out, etc., etc. And we are talking about a rich country, Russia. I mean, it's not Somalia. It's a country that was inside globalization, inside the international fluxes of capital, of trade, of money, of goods, etc. So what is China, if we speak clearly, because nobody threatens Taiwan except China? What is China seeing now? And what is China's leadership seeing now? A leadership that from the very beginning has only one priority, that is to keep in power, have absolute power and keep it forever. So that's their main, their unique, their only aim. So what are I seeing now? That an army that on paper was absolutely overwhelming is stalling, is passing weeks and weeks, that occupying a different country, an independent country, when people are against that is not so easy, because you only see Afghanistan or see Iraq or see in this moment. It's different when it's an insurgency inside the same country, as Syria, for instance, or Libya, because that's a civil war. But an occupation cannot keep itself. So the effect that the resolve, the unity of all democratic countries against this aggression, and the sanctions that have been established, and the resolve of the Ukrainians can give Taiwanese hope that China is not will learn the lesson. The lesson has already learned the lesson that it's better not to go that way if you want to keep power in your own country, because the history and China's leadership, as you know, was very willing of ancient history. In history, the first cause of falling of kings, of emperors, of dictators has been a war. Has been being a war and not being able, not to lose it maybe, but not being able to win it. That's the main. That's the main or the more numerous cause of falling dictators. So I think that deterrence and containment, but mainly deterrence, that has worked these 70 years to keep Taiwan free will go on working in the future, because China is seeing what happens when you cross the line of deterrence. You are not attacked militarily. I mean, you are not bombed by atomic bombs, by nuclear bombs, but you are cut, but your economy crumbles. So your people are not willing to do that, are not willing to go that way. We are talking now in this moment, we don't know if, because dictatorships are brittle, especially that dictatorships that are personal dictatorships, like Putin is not a party in power in China. It's more brittle than that. It's very fragile. It can be a coup, a rebellion, a palace rebellion in any moment by a general, an oligarch. All the Kremlin is infiltrated, as we have seen these weeks, when the United States has been published anything that they knew about by spies inside, or moles inside the Russian leadership. But everything has been known publicly, and there are more things that have not been told publicly. So I don't think that China feels now that it has been what was prepared, that it was quick, like Crimea was, quick, bloodless, a bogus referendum. People vote in that referendum, yes, we want to join Mother Russia again, as Crimea, that bogus referendum. People under a military occupation of a foreign dictatorship vote that, kind of, and that was the plan. And in that case, it would be just a little bit of sanctions for a short time. And in that case, China would have thought, well, let's try. Let's try, because it's not problem. I mean, if we get Taiwan, we win. And if we don't get Taiwan on that, well, nothing happens. Nothing really happens. So let's try. I don't think that China is now thinking that way.